Well, it's that time again for a lesson with Noobert. Today's lesson will be on killing enemies, protecting your friends, and if said friends don't pay you, then how to kill your new enemies. Let's start with one we all know and loathe, pirates. Well, yes, but actually no. I'm talking about spacer pirates who run low to mid-tier level weapons and armor that goes from basic clothing to marine armor. Oh, and as an added bonus, they also are a faction that love to kidnap fallen pawns whenever they can. Finally, they siege and charge drop pods into your bases. So, how do we beat pirates? Well, dealing with a pirate raid, I recommend allowing the melee units. They may have to run ahead and pick them off one by one. After that, focus on whoever you want. The biggest issue of any raid is melee units surrounding and taking down your units. Though keep in mind that pirates can come in with high explosives. The best weapons for pirates are usually one-shot, one-kill weapons like sniper and hunting rifles. Their numbers are usually lower than other raids, and you can whittle them away enough to force a retreat. Good turret placement can help a lot, but that's standard defensive tactics, which we talked about in a previous video. On the other side of the spectrum, there are tribals, low weapon and armor tiered. One would think that just having high-tech weaponry and good armor will be good enough to deal with what is basically pissed off cavemen. Yeah, you say that, but they have one big advantage. That would be their numbers. It's going to be at least a 10-to-1 fight in late game, sometimes more. The old tactic of picking off and hoping for them to retreat will not cut it for tribals. For this, ditch the hunting rifle and snipers and break out the miniguns and assault rifles. Grenades and rocket launchers could also be helpful given you got so much outgrouping. Finally, setting up melee choke points could help. Having pawns with marine armor, a shield belt, and good melee weapons could hold back the tide. Though keep in mind, if they break through the walls, you might have a Zerg rush level of melee units surrounding you, and eventually pawns can fall to pain. Moving to Outlanders, who are people who live on the rim. As far as tech level, they do exactly what pirates can do, except you can reason with them and not get raided, and you also won't have them kidnapping your pawns. I recommend playing nice with them, as they can be another source of income through trade. Now for one of the hardest opponents in the game, Mechanoids. These robotic monsters will be the bane of any playthrough due to their high armor, lack of any retreat action, and their varied units. The Scyther, a deadly unit with the speed of a ninja and the skill of one to match. Your best bet against them is choke points and melee pawns, holding them back while your allies hit the Scythers in the back. The Lancer, a sniper unit armed with a powerful charge lance. I recommend a rushing maneuver with more than one unit facing it to pick and choose and possibly lose focus, and then beating them up close since they are fragile and not very good at melee. Finally, for the last of the original trio, we have the Centipede. With their high armor and tendency to be armed with fire launchers and miniguns, they are the bane of many playthroughs. Due to their low speed, they usually will be the last to arrive if they showed up from the edge of the map, so you can actually use mortar fire on them or rush them and melee them. There is one thing you can do that I'm sure not everyone knows. You can use a psychic insanity lance on them. Yeah, apparently they do work on mechanoids, and using one of these on a centipede with a heavy weapon, and you not only prevented your death, you got a great distraction against the other mech. Of course, there are a few more mechanoids. If you have the royalty expansion, you will now be dealing with the pikeman unit. Now, while they aren't the strongest damage nor the best shot, the reason they are scary is the armor-piercing shots. One shot in the wrong spot and you can say goodbye to your best pawn, and their range is huge. Best thing to do against them is rush them and hope they miss the shots just like the Lancers. Finally, the worst one of them all, the Termite. Added in the version 1.3, these monsters live up to their name by being the breachers. They will target your walls with their thumper gun and break through it, taking out wooden walls in 1 hit, stone in 2, uranium in 3, and finally plasteel in 4 hits. These shots also can easily down pawns. Best thing to do, use any side powers to teleport close to them, or drop shields to protect attacking pawns or the wall it's firing on itself. Seriously terrifying stuff, and that's not the only way mechs can attack. Royalty added the Mech Cluster. I can't give specific advice on how to deal with them, as each cluster has its own shape and design, but the key things you should do is use EMP weapons to stun powerful opponents, target key parts like unstable power cells, and of course pay attention to turret placement, as if they wake up you might have them gun down your guys. Trying to go for explosion chains could be your best chance to wipe out the cluster, though at a cost of many resources, but hey, that's the Rim baby. Oh, and if they crash land in your base, just pray. Pray and do your best. Now there is the Empire, who for the most part will remain neutral with you. Of course, if you don't want to join them... Okay, yeah, this is one faction you might want to steer clear of, given that they normally are a neutral faction who is worth more to please than piss off. But if you want to do that kind of playthrough, use everything taught by the pirate entry. Maybe using Psychic Insanity Lances on key targets. Just pray they don't get too close as this faction. While their raids won't have many members, they will have the best weapons and armor and even bionics. The worst part for me is that they have acidifiers, so when they die, so does their items, so another reason why fighting them is a bad idea. There's not much to get out of it. On the note of high tier weapons and armor, the Ancient faction is another who have it. This faction being the group of frozen people in Ancient Dangers, when you open them up, you usually get angry people. Since you can usually control when you want to open the caskets, go for a line of troops in the back, melee in the front, and hit the caskets. If you are lucky, you knock them out and get potentially good people or items on them. Now, before this last bit of the video, I wanted to take a moment to remind you all to like and subscribe to the channel, comment your favorite Rimworld fact, and maybe even consider donating to our Patreon. We have many wonderful supporters that we couldn't run this channel without. First up are the Mega Scarabs. Little fast worker units. They, like their brethren, are resistant to blunt and sharp damage thanks to their chitin, but luckily for you, they are the weakest of the three, though serious about the blunt. It's a 72 blunt resistance. They also are the only member of the insect faction to be found out in the desert and extreme desert biome. Second are the Spilipedes, the middle child who really don't have that much special about them. Really, they aren't the main ones to worry about during an infestation. No, the ones to really worry about are the Mega Scarabs. These bad boys can shred into your pawns and cause bleed out. So how does one combat insect? Well, first off, don't have a mountain base if you can't handle them. They only spawn in warm areas under mountains. Barring that, set up choke points to fight them one by one. Insectoids' greatest strengths are their numbers and overwhelming people. You could also try hit and run tactics and lead them through your base and outside, though this might be easier said than done. Just remember, don't let them overwhelm you. Oh, and if you are underground, have ways for fire to escape if you try the Colonial Marines method of extermination. If you want to know more about insects, check out this video we did previously. Finally, glad I could wrap this up. But like mentioned before, this was talking about Vanilla Rimworld as of 1.3. There are plenty of modded factions that perhaps we could talk about in the future if enough people want it. Now click another video!